Good afternoon to you. For Telesur, I'm Reagan Devines in Caracas, Venezuela, and this is From the South. Thank you for being here with us. We begin in Venezuela, where a day after passing a law to ensure job security for all workers until the year 2018, President Nicolas Maduro has announced a series of economic measures to protect social spending, boost the economy, and prevent abuses by big private companies. One of the 5 laws introduced by presidential decree ensures that companies pay the corporation tax that they owe.
Decreto Ley 2163.
This tax reform is aimed at Venezuela's big corporate taxpayers at large-scale capital. It will not affect individuals, nor will it affect companies with only a small amount of capital. We are talking about a group of about 3,000 corporate taxpayers. These are very rich companies that in the present circumstances should be contributing more and more. So I am eliminating here the exemptions that were still in place, what tax specialists call loopholes, which allowed them to avoid paying their tax.
Now, here's a closer look at the measures that will be implemented. The first is the partial reform of corporate tax law. There will be an increase in the tax collection on big businesses by 34 to 40%. The second, a change in how large financial transactions are carried out. In a nutshell, this reform, which is only directed at big capital, aims to prevent tax evasion and hiding of profits by big businesses. The third is a reform of the foreign exchange system. Now, under this new measure, penalties will be established for unofficial foreign exchange, and US dollars will be allocated to companies based on need. Next, we have the Mine Development Plan for 2016 to 2018. The plan includes provisions for the creation of mixed enterprises, with the Venezuelan state retaining at least 55% of shares. The legislation will also protect the environment and aims to reduce illegal mining areas. And finally, the reform of the country's petrochemical industry in order to develop the sector as well as attract foreign currency and technology. Also yesterday, President Maduro delivered the millionth home that has been built under the auspices of the country's massive public housing program. The house was delivered to a 40-year-old social worker who is a mother of 2. Since the inception of the program back in 2011 by former President Hugo Chavez, Venezuela's housing mission has invested more than 461 billion bolívares and $73 billion in creating affordable homes for residents.
So it falls on you, as a young Venezuelan woman, to receive this, the 1 millionth key to the 1 millionth home. And when I say 1 million, I'm already looking ahead to the 3 million homes we plan to build. And we will get there. I say this before the country. Whatever happens, through thunder, lightning, or rain, no matter how many difficulties or how much hatred, love and our country will come through. And this great housing mission will succeed. In the name of Hugo Chavez, I give you the 1 millionth key.
To Argentina now, where the right-wing government led by President Mauricio Macri has announced the scrapping of the Federal Audiovisual Communications Services Authority, which has been the watchdog overseeing implementation of the Audiovisual Media Law passed back in 2010. The government also said that they would send a new media bill to Parliament with the aim of replacing that 2010 law.
Argentina's government has announced yet another decree which it describes as necessary and urgent. This time it announced the creation of the National Authority for Communications, which will absorb the functions of 2 existing bodies, the Federal Administration of Audiovisual Communication Services and the Federal Administration of Industrial Technology Communications. Both of these will cease to exist from next Monday.
By decision of President Macri, the status war with journalism is coming to an end. A period of confrontation and conflict, which has served no purpose and done great damage to our democracy, is over.
Popular movements in Argentina have cried foul, calling the measure a downright assault on freedom of speech. They say it benefits the corporate mainstream media and not the voice of the people. Large nationwide demonstrations are expected in the next few days.
Those who represent the interest of big capital and those who dominate the media, that is basically the Clarín group, have this aim, to do away with the media law. They don't want half measures, to see if maybe the Federal Audiovisual Communication Services Authority remains in place or not, or if the media law remains or not. No, what they want is total destruction. And in these circumstances, I think Congress must act.
For journalists, the measure came as no surprise. They are well aware that it seeks to give all power back to the large media corporations and feel that this is a very sad day for those who believe in press freedom and a genuine variety of voices across the airwaves.
No se sabe qué características va a tener esta nueva ley, pero seguramente va a tener una gran envoltura para
We don't yet to know what the new law will contain, but it will surely go to great lengths to hide its true intention, which is to avoid the demonopolization of the biggest media groups. For journalists, it is a very sad day, because many of us, who really believe in democratizing information, have always dreamed of a country with a true diversity of voices.
Siempre soñamos con un país donde hubiera diversidad de voces.
Macri's chief of staff indicated that the government will propose setting up a bicameral commission in Congress to discuss a new communications law. The idea would be to integrate the media law and the law on communication technologies into new legislation that would replace the 2010 law, a law which has been praised worldwide for rolling back corporate media domination and for giving a voice to those who historically have been voiceless. Leo Political-Ulti, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
Colombia's government has decreed a 7% increase in the minimum wage, but the move has not been welcomed by the unions. Our correspondent in Bogotá, Natalia Margarita, explains why.
Union leaders gathered in front of the Ministry of Labor to protest the government's decision to increase the minimum wage by $15. After failed negotiations in which businessmen were pushing to limit the increase to 6%, while workers were demanding 11%, the government leaned towards the employers and decreed a 7% increase.
The government has sided with the employers' pettiness, didn't need the fair call of the workers, and denied them a few more cents that were important in order to stimulate the demand for goods and services. On that point, I believe that bosses themselves are committing suicide.
Unions have categorically rejected a minimum salary of $220, one of the lowest in Latin America. They say that instead of improving the workers' quality of life, the 7% wage increase will only compensate for the country's rising inflation, which ended 2015 at over 6%, the highest in the last 10 years.
In Colombia, those who earn the minimum wage spend 70% of it on food. And according to the National Department of Statistics, the price of basic food needs has increased by 12%. So this is not an increase, it actually leaves workers worse off.
On top of the low wage increase, Colombians will start the new year with a tax reform in which VAT on even the most basic goods is expected to rise. That, together with a highly devalued currency, is leaving the population with very few options.
What we workers will have to do next year is hold a nationwide strike against the labor and tax policies that the government is implementing. It's raising the tax to 19%, and basic food prices are expected to go up because of the drought. So the situation developing in the country is quite dire.
Now, unionists say that even worse than the minimum wage itself is the fact that, according to their estimations, half of the working population earns even less than that, as informal employment is widespread in Colombia. Natalia Margarita, Telesur, Bogotá.
Coming up next, another arrest has been made by police in Belgium in connection with the deadly November Paris attacks. The details on this story and more next.
behind the power. We lift the lid on some of the world's most ruthless figures. Open file. Only on telesurtv.net in English. From London, an interpretation of current world politics as presented by the activist, writer and historian Tariq Ali.
The emergence of the United States as a global empire.
The world today. Only on telesurtv.net in English. Wherever the news, you'll be there.
According to local media in Syria, at least 16 people are now dead after 2 recent suicide bombings. Videos posted online show the destructive effects of the explosions that rocked the northeastern city of Qamishli. 2 restaurants in the city, where there is a Kurdish and a Syrian Christian population, were the targets of the Islamic State group, which has already claimed responsibility for the attacks. At least 35 people were also wounded in the incidents. On Wednesday, Belgian police arrested a 10th suspect over the November 13th Paris attacks in which 130 people were killed. The suspect is a Belgian-born French citizen and was detained in the Brussels suburb of Molenbeek, where several of the Paris attackers lived. According to prosecutors, while neither weapons nor explosives were found in the suspect's premises, about 10 mobile phones were seized and are being examined. Staying in Belgium, a heightened terror alert has prompted authorities to cancel New Year's festivities in Brussels, including fireworks. The cancellation came after authorities arrested 2 people on suspicion of being involved in a plot to attack sites in the capital that are frequently packed by tourists as well as locals. Authorities say 6 more people have also been detained for questioning in connection with the alleged New Year's plot. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel made a New Year's speech where she said that the influx of refugees is an opportunity for her country.
I am convinced that if we tackle the formidable task posed by the influx and integration of so many people in the right way today, then this will represent an opportunity for us tomorrow, because we have great civil action and a comprehensive concept of political measures.
More violence in the occupied territories, as earlier this Thursday, a resident was shot and killed by Israeli troops. According to Israeli military, the man rammed them with his car near the city of Nablus, injuring one of them. The assailant was shot by forces on the site, resulting in his death. Since the start of October, at least 132 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces or by armed civilians. Many of those died as they attacked Israelis as the Palestinian Intifada continues. A Bangladeshi court has sentenced 2 students to death for the 2013 murder of a blogger and activist known by his pen name as Thaber Baba. This makes it the first conviction from a series of killings targeting secular writers. One of the 2 students, who attended one of the country's top universities, was sentenced in absentia as he has fled from authorities. During a televised press conference on Wednesday, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari said that he is ready to negotiate with the Boko Haram for the release of more than 200 girls that were kidnapped in April last year. Buhari said that the talks will take place only if the armed group could identify credible leadership. Hundreds of captives have been freed in recent months, but none of the kidnapped girls were among them. Fracking, the process of using a high-pressure water mixture to extract oil and gas from shale rock, continues to be a topic of debate in the United States. The practice has been under scrutiny, where initially many assumed it to be a safe alternative to conventional drilling. However, the newest reports prove otherwise. Bianca Perez has those details.
2015 ended with no solution to the problem of fracking in the United States. Since 2005, 360,000 acres of land have been damaged by this practice, which environmentalists argue is promoted as a false solution to global warming.
Fracking is a false solution. It won't get you closer to solving climate change. And in fact, it seems kind of counterintuitive that you would want to drill for more fossil fuels, which are the primary cause of climate change, as you try to transition to clean energy.
Organizations who oppose the practice claim that the science is clear and should be enough to put an end to the drilling.
The scientists tell us that we have to leave most of the coal and oil and gas that we know about underground, that if we burn it, it will simply overheat the planet.
Up to 600 chemicals are used in fracking fluid, and methane concentrations are 17 times higher in drinking water wells near fracturing sites. At least 15.3 million Americans live within a mile of a drilled well. This close proximity has resulted in various health issues.
The health impacts have been myriad. People lose their hair, they have horrible rashes, terrible headaches, tumors, all sorts of really serious diseases that aren't being explored.
During the 21st Conference of Parties that took place in France in early December, the Paris Agreement was adopted by the 195 nations present. The accord focuses on limiting emissions and adapting to climate change, but it doesn't directly address the practice of fracking for fossil fuels. Bianca Perez, Telesur, Washington, D.C.
Rugby in the North African country of Algeria has been on the decline, but the sport is making a comeback. It was the first played in clubs during French colonization and was deserted after 1972. But on December 18th, the country officially formed its first national rugby team. The Algeria Rugby Federation now hopes to start climbing up the African rankings, which is currently topped by South Africa. It is New Year's Eve and preparations are taking place across the globe to ring in the new year. In the United States, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, will be celebrating the new year with flamboyant costumes, music and dancing in what they call the Mama's Parade. Now, the parade's been criticized in the past as being racist and exclusive, but the organizers are hoping to get back to its roots by inviting different ethnic groups to join in this time. And speaking of ringing in the new year, rehearsals are underway in Rio de Janeiro for the Copacabana Beach New Year celebrations. For the first time in the event's history, there will be a 2-hour musical theater show that will tell the story of 100 years of samba through costumes, actors and dancers. 2 million people are expected to attend. And in Ecuador, locals in the capital Quito are preparing for the arrival of the new year with a slew of paraphernalia that includes famous life-sized dolls that are burnt to signify the end of the year. The giant dolls are part of the popular traditions of the Andean nation, and some of the effigies include political characters as well as famous personalities. For more, please join us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter, or you can visit our website, telesurtv.net/English. For our last show in 2015, we leave you with the fireworks from Thailand, which is already in 2016. My name is Regan Veens. From our news teams here in Caracas, Venezuela, and in Quito, Ecuador, all the best to you. Have a great one. Bye.